So, question is, how does your company identify the right targets? And I know Kevin does that. Pat, it'd be interesting to hear what you do. But Kevin, why don't you go first and tell us how you identify the targets for?
Okay. Primarily, we try to engage our employees in the search for targets. The business area we play in, it's pretty incestuous. Your subcontractors are ultimately your prime contractors going after large jobs, so everybody knows everybody, and the idea is to find somebody that isn't for sale. There are plenty of opportunities where you can go to an investment banker where they'll put out a SIM and get into a bidding strategy with 100 other companies to buy something. But the idea is to find someone who doesn't realize they're for sale right now, and then try to work with them to get them to a point. It may require strategic teaming on things so that you get to understand their business acumen as well as their ethics, and then try to convince them to sell ultimately. And that is a long-term relationship.
Okay. There's two different answers for us with this. One is with our existing portfolio companies. We go through a pretty exhaustive strategic planning process with each of our companies, and it's something that when we first acquire a business, we begin and we continue it as long as we own the company. And one of the things that we do in these strategic planning sessions is identify, all right, what are potential acquisition targets, and let's clearly define what does that target look like, and then we sort of use that basis to go out into the market to see what's available. As he said, you can always see deals from investment bankers and brokers and the like, but they're not necessarily always going to be the best deals for you. The best deals typically are going to be those deals that you get some sort of direct connection with, and a lot of times when it's an add-on acquisition, it's a lot easier, or if it's a strategic acquisition for one of your businesses, it's easier because you're in the business. You kind of know the space, you know the players, they know you. So you have a lot easier avenue towards communicating with some of these businesses. So a lot of times those deals take years and years and years, to make happen. But you have to stay the course, with that process, because in the end you'll make out well with it. In terms of looking at new deals, for us, we have a clear focus. Again, it becomes a clear focus and identified target analysis as to what that target looks like. And for us, it's highly engineered products in the manufacturing sector. So, and they tend to be companies that have less than $5 million in EBITDA, tend to be less than $50 million in sales. But we're very focused in that space, in finding the right kind of business. And for us, that right kind of business may not be right for anybody else, but for us, we know what it looks like. So when it comes down the path, we know what deals we can chase and what deals to walk away from, and we very quickly will walk away from deals. We'll look at 400 deals a year, and maybe 25 of them we take any further steps on, even conversations. And of those 25, we may bid on 5 companies a year and maybe get 1. And if we don't do 1, that's fine as well. I mean, again, that's like most of you, we don't have pressure from a fund that tells us we have to get money out there invested. So patience, I think, is the key.
I think when we're working on the buy side with a client, the acquisition strategies that have the most success are those that are focused, and I think that speaks to some of the things that the other panelists have mentioned here. In addition, if you're going to consider that strategy, there's a lot of things you can do your homework in terms of understanding, talking to your lenders or other financing providers in terms of what type of additional financing may be available for the acquisition. How am I going to pay for it? Getting smart on where companies that you might be looking at trade in terms of value. Sometimes where valuation is in the current marketplace may surprise you, may disappoint you, but getting smart about that up front can help avoid wasting time down the road. And it is a process. There's often times where initially someone's valuation expectations are well beyond where you think it makes strategic sense, and but maybe over time that evolves as they get to know you and they get a little educated about what's available in the marketplace. So even if you're not actively pursuing a specific target, You can do a lot of things to get ready for those opportunities when they present themselves, because they may come out of nowhere, and if you've done your homework up front, you can respond quickly, which is really your friend in any acquisition. If you can move quickly, you have an advantage over the other folks that may be pursuing it.
Real quickly too, before we move, one other thing I'd add is don't be afraid to walk away from a deal. I mean, that's your strongest negotiating point in any deal. At any stage in the process, if you fall in love with the company, you might make a bad decision. So you have to try to stay at an arm's length distance when you're doing those your due diligence in this process, because when the purpose of due diligence is to find out what you think this business was when you first looked at it. If that's the truth, and if that's truly what it is, then you move forward. If you find something in that business, you don't oversee it because you think well, I can change it or I can do that. Stick firm with your process and with your goals, and if it doesn't meet those things, walk away.